Okay, not yet. Okay, guys, welcome back from lunch. And now we have the next speaker, Chris Pat from Quali. Alpha Casual to Casual, what do you need to know? So, Chris, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I hope everyone had a great coffee break. I'm Chris. I'm a publishing manager over here at Quali. I've been around for about 2 years in the industry on the publishing side of things. Worked with hundreds of hyper-casual studios and, now working with some casual studios too. There's a lot of people are moving from hyper-casual to casual, and I'm going to go through why that is, what difficulties they face, what difficulties we faced, and how you guys can help circumvent that and, learn from what mistakes we've made and spread that knowledge between the community and stuff like that. So let's get started. Cool. So why has there been a change to begin with? So there's been a lot of saturation in the industry. Publishers and developers, have just grown like crazy. I mean, we've gone from 50 to 270 people in 2 years. There's 190 job openings currently at Quali, and we're constantly growing. And then we see this across the industry. Studios that were 10 people 2 years ago, 3 years ago, are now 50, 60 people. The massive growth. Turkey, India, and other places have become massive hotspots for hyper casual. There's lots of great developers there. There's lots of great developers outside of that, and none of this means that you can't be part of it. Just because there's lots of people there doesn't mean you can't be successful. Hyper casual wasn't dead. I've had a few mutterings around the industry about that. It's not at all. It's just doing as well as it ever has been. There's been tons of games published in the past 12 months. I tried to find a figure for that, but couldn't find one. Quietly ourselves, we've launched 5, 10, 20 games that have hit the top charts in the past year. There's a lot of games that are still doing really well. And I think that, if anyone thinks that hyper casual isn't going to carry on living for a long time, then you're definitely wrong, because so many games coming out, so many passionate developers, so many passionate studios just working together to make these great games. And, hyper casual is growing and changing for sure. We've had the rise of Arcade Idol and stuff like that, but hyper casual is still very strong there at the core, and the principles that hyper casual is built on is still very prevalent in the industry as well. So what are the challenges? I'll go across these pretty easily. Why lots of people have gone from hyper casual to casual, and they've tried to do it with the same team, the same mindset. So in terms of production, patience has become really important. This is kind of across the board. Producers in the industry are, worth their weight in gold at the moment. Producers are, the people that hold the team together. There needs to be a lot more hands-on in casual. You're going to have multiple producers probably on one casual game, especially as it scales up. In the early life cycle of that, you might have one. But as the game starts to scale, you get to soft launch or, a tech proto or something like that, you're going to need more people on it. There's a lot more moving parts and, a lot more problems that can happen there. Not enough time. A lot of people I've talked to in the industry that I've had conversations with here at Quali and outside of Quali, and some of my friends in the industry as well, and the guys over at Charge Monkey as well. Like there's sometimes not enough time to get things done, and this is where producers come in and they help balance this out. They if they've been producing hyper casual, they might have to take a bit of a step back and reevaluate how they work in casual, because it's a very different mindset to kind of plan sprints, that you might not see the results of those sprints properly after testing for quite a long time. And it's about pre-planning and making sure, you have the right people in your team, you have the right results coming in for each of those sprints. Making sure each of those sprints is very targeted, whereas in a hyper casual, you might work on multiple areas in one sprint. In casual, you're going to be focusing on probably one specific area, one specific metric you're trying to increase in that sprint and stuff. So it becomes quite important on that side of things. When we move to marketing, though, there's a huge mental shift. If we're talking about ad creatives and stuff like that, it's not the same. You're not making the same kind of ads. It's a different kind of ad strategy you need to go about. You need to change how you guys think about what's marketable to your audience. It's a lot more audience focused. You need to understand the market research as well as this, and constantly research what are competitors doing, why are they doing this, who are their audiences, how does that apply to what we're working on, how can we kind of find our own way into this. A lot of companies use different mechanics that might not be in the game or very small parts of the game to get certain people, but use other mechanics to get others. And you'll find that these work better on different platforms, different ad mediation networks and stuff like that. Also, when it comes to marketing, there's a much wider ideation of what content is in our ad creatives and what content is in our general marketing as well. Because when you go into casual games, you're building communities. People love these games. They play them for years. There's going to be massive communities behind them. You're talking about a lot more special offers, things like that. And a lot of that can be accelerated by marketing. And used in terms of UA as well. As we move over to design, though, it gets even more interesting. You're planning for the future a lot more when it comes to casual than you are for hyper casual. When you're doing design for casual, you need to be a lot more focused on how might this affect something 6 months down the line. How might this affect something a year down the line. If I've been playing this game for a year, what's my experience going to be like if this is where I started and these are the mechanics that we've implemented? How do they feel 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year down the line? It becomes very important to kind of be aware of the longevity of your games. And this brings me to bugs as well. I mean, I've seen it twice now on my end where we've had a bug which has been very minor to begin with, and it doesn't really bother you, and it's not something your average player would see. And in hyper casual, sometimes that would maybe fly, and you could go ahead with that. But then we go on to, a bug in a game, that affects you 6 months down the line, or even a week down the line, 2 weeks down the line. These players are around for a lot longer. These bugs can become exponentially problematic, and it's about making sure each bug you find is squashed and testing them in the right places as well. We've got a massive QA team, but sometimes things will slip through, and that's why we make sure whereas in hyper casual you might just completely roll out a game straight away, in casual you roll it out very slowly, and this is where you might pick up bugs and be able to take them on and analyze them and find out where they came from and how we can approach it and what this could have done further down the line as well. And that becomes very, very, very important to be aware of what we're implementing and making sure these bug fixes don't break anything else as well. Something that's really important when it comes to design is working with your teams that work on community management as well. So unlike in hyper casual where you might find you get a lot of logs and analytics that come through that tell you someone's broken something, in casual you're going to have even more analytics, but sometimes things might slip through. This is where support emails can become really important as well, and they help you identify some bugs too. That also is in hyper casual too, but it's a bit more prominent in casual. Synchronization with design. Design needs to be a lot more synchronized with the art and the marketing and production side of things as well. This is once again kind of where your producers come in, but design needs to be aware of what marketing needs and how they can help marketing, making sure that they have the resources and the assets they might need to make more creative ideas when it comes to making new videos and new marketing assets and things like that. Art's a massive mindset change as well. Not that the art in hyper casual is worse or in any way lesser than casual art. It's just a lot more coherent style over a lot longer time. So making sure that whoever's leading up your art team has a very specific idea of what the art style of the entire game is going to be, and making sure every asset, every part of the game follows that is really important. Making sure your team is on the same kind of wavelength when it comes to making art is really important too, and doing consistent reviews with your team to make sure that things are very cohesive and coherent and follow the same kind of design principles that you set out to begin with. It becomes a really important thing because you work on this game for years. I mean, we look at games like Candy Crush. People have been working on that game for 5-6 years now, even longer than that, I believe. Also, some of the feedback I got from people in the art department here at Quali and at other companies too is that a lot of techniques might need to be relearned because they kind of have been forgotten about in the hyper casual development side of things. And that's a really important thing to be aware of, is that you need to constantly be learning, and this goes for every role in every company and every department in the world, not just in games and casual, but make sure you're constantly learning and relearning things that you have previously learned, so that you're constantly refreshing your memory and you're able to keep up and be aware of mistakes you might make as you get more comfortable in your work. Art is also really important to have your tools ready, making sure that the tools that you use are the same across the team. If you're generating any assets, you want to make sure that it's generating the same kind of stuff across the team. Don't use different kind of software, anything like that, because make sure everyone's using the same stuff, because when you import that stuff, it's a bit more obvious and casual. We found that, things might look slightly different if they come from a slightly different program and stuff like that. So it's good to make sure everyone's using the same tools, everyone's working together, and everyone's, aware of, what we should be using, how we use it, and what the end product is. If we move forward, how to prepare for this. So there's some really good stuff we can take from hyper casual here. When it comes to the ideation stuff at the start, I know Riley from Umami Games talked about this in her talk yesterday, I believe. It's a really great point, but making sure that your ideation, you can take stuff from hyper casual and turn it into casual games. You can use those hyper casual ideas that you've had 1,000 of to generate new casual ideas as well, and finding that quick ideation process where you can get things down very quickly and look at how they might work is really important. But you're not doing this in terms of prototypes so much, but more in terms of paper development, writing out the processes, writing out what you think it will look like on a piece of paper, quite literally. And, doing that with your team and having regular reviews with them about what ones we should move forward, is this going to work in the long term? And building those into proofs of concept, like making sure that your basic game does appeal to an audience. Like whether or not, you're not going to get 5-cent CPI to begin with probably here, because in cash games that stuff takes a lot longer to get right. But do people play this game? Do they enjoy it? Is this base mechanic going to allow us to progress into a full game, a full global launched game that has years lifespan? Making sure that you're not extending yourself too much. You probably, if you're a large company, you'll have multiple teams working on things at proof of concept, and many teams working on things at paper development. But then once you progress into the retention and actually making money, that's when you're going to have to, bring your team together, have more people working on it. You're going to have multiple producers at this point. You're going to have multiple art teams that have come from working on other games, and bringing them together and having strong leads that can keep those people working together and, making sure everything flows. Once again, producers that help that out. And then running the business, moving into the business and, adapting to the players, making sure that the players you're working with are, the right people for your game, and listening to them and, caring about what your players say a lot more. I mean, in hyper casual, we've all seen it, we've got 30, 40, 100 reviews on Google Play or the App Store where it's like, too many ads and stuff like that. In hyper casual, it's not such a big worry. But when it comes to casual games, if you're relying on ads a lot, you need to kind of rethink maybe the way you're going about things, because your attention will drop off and you'll start to have some issues there with your community. So how to plan and evaluate. I recommend doing this for pretty much every sprint, everything you do in terms of casual games, and it's something I didn't really do quite as much on hyper casual, but on casual it's way more important. You always should start with a question. Find out what answers might answer this question. Research them and find out, okay, we've got this problem. We've got problem A with the economy. How could we balance this out? And there will be multiple answers for that. But you need to prioritize, which one of these answers is going to be the most impactful and get us to our goal most likely. And this is going to be, figuring out what's the best time evaluation, like how much time are you going to spend building this out, to how long it's going to take us to actually find out if it's done the job, if it's been impactful. So then you implement the test, and you evaluate how effective it was. So you test it, the test in casual might be 7 days, but you're looking at those players or those 7 days for the next 30 days or the next 60 days. How do they end? Is your day 30 retention higher now, or is it lower? It takes a lot longer to get these results, and everyone needs to be aware of that when you're working casual games, especially because, like I said earlier, the bigger games, they last a lot longer. We need to evaluate the effectiveness of this as well, and the way to do this is pretty important, in my opinion. I've got a few bullet points here. Find out who did what, how did that go, make sure, what could they take from this project, and, if it didn't work or it did work, how can they use this for future questions or future sprints, and, or other games if we kill this game, what did they learn? Each individual person should be able to discuss what they learned while making this, while answering this question, while doing this sprint, if you will. And did it meet our expectations? As a group, did it meet our expectations? Like, where were the problems? And, did we get the results we wanted? And then deciding what's next. It might be a retest on, a slightly different answer to that question you had, or it might be, we answered that question perfectly, let's move on to the next one. Or it might be, hey, this question was the life or death of this game, let's move on to the next game. And this should always be a discussion to help promote constant ideation and promote ideas, and it should be with everyone on the team. Everyone who's worked on this question or this sprint should be a part of this evaluation process. Listening to your developers, listening to the people you work with is the way you're going to make great games, because they're going to share those creative ideas and they're going to constantly keep learning. And that becomes extremely important, not just in hyper casual and casual, but across the games industry as a whole. We're a creative bunch of people and we need to stay creative. And if people in your team don't feel like they're going to be listened to, then they're not going to share those creative ideas as much. So make sure your team feels comfortable and is listened to as well. Resources, this is really important. So on hyper casual, we use some of these. We use Sense Tower all the time, and there's, we play a lot of our competitors' games and stuff like that. So I've got GD Talks on here. Did a talk with them a few months back. They were great. Hyper Games Conference is another one I put in here as well. Talks like this, loads of talks I've seen over the past day or so, and in previous HGCs have been really important resources on learning, on how to progress, how to move forward. How can I change what I'm doing to be better? Is there anything I can do to increase certain parts of what I'm doing, or ideate better? Game Refinery is an amazing service. I think it is wonderful. We use it here at Quali. A lot of people in the industry use it. Developers, you should use it too. Helps you identify games that are out there that might be similar to ones you're making, or might be similar to ones you want to make, and identify why they work. Who are the players that play that game? How can we engage with those kinds of people? What kind of mechanics do they like? What did this last update come out with? And how can we look at that and apply that to something that we're going to do? Sharing information in general is really important in the industry, and it's one of the reasons that I'm doing this talk right now. GameIndustry.biz as well, not one so commonly used for mobile, but I think it's becoming much more common. It's a great place. There's lots of people that talk about their success and how they achieved it. And you and your team as well. Like, speak to the people around you. They are wonderful. They are very smart people. You can learn so much from those that you work with, and even yourself in many ways. There's a few other ways you can, a few other resources that are really good as well. Sense Vision is a playtesting environment where you can get your games tested by quality people, so you get a lot more insight into how the game engages with your target audience, rather than just using analytics to analyze that. Getting actually the words from the horse's mouth, if you will, and listening to what people are saying, it becomes very important in casual games. It's not just Sense Vision, but Playtest Cloud are one for this as well. There's a lot of services out there that do this kind of qualitative playtesting instead of quantity. You can run your own campaigns on Facebook or wherever, and get some data from that, but you're not going to be able to actually listen to the players and what they're doing and what they love about the game. Like, why do they play it? Analytics are great for that, and in casual games, you're going to have 1,000 more analytics than you would in any other kind of game on mobile, especially when it comes to hyper casual. But obviously mid-core and stuff like that have them too. But you need to be aware of what your players are doing almost second to second. Analyzing, are players just sitting there for 10 minutes because they just don't know what to do next? Are they bored? Are they turning off the game and not coming back to it? Why are they doing that? And actually talking to them and finding out. Community managers can be really important for that as well, like managing your community when you get a much larger game, to learn from who your audience are and how can we engage with them better. But moving on from that, time and team management is maybe the most important thing I will talk about here. Producer and product managers. So this is from Producer Equality. You have to be constantly hands-on and manage deadlines, because they're over longer periods and the effects of one thing stuck could be exponential. And this is maybe the thing that brings home most for me, and for a lot of people I've talked to in the casual side of things. I've got a few friends in the industry that run their own casual development companies and stuff like that, and they've been working on games for 8-9 months, and they still don't know if they're viable products yet. But they need to make sure that their team and the time that they're spending on that product is worthwhile. Like, they've learned a lot in that time, but they might not have learned if it's a viable product just yet. So be aware that things are a lot slower. Be aware that, you might need to take a step back and just see how things play out sometimes when it comes to casual games, because you might need to wait for 10, 20, 30 days to get results and tests you need to see. You want to see the answers for. That's why A/B testing is really important across the entire mobile industry. Just because you need to analyze how your players work with you, and understand that sometimes A might look better to begin with, but in the long term, B actually works a lot better for the players. And once they pick up how B works, or realizing how you introduce new mechanics and things like that can be very, very important too. One thing I recommend that everyone does, and this doesn't go for just the games industry and casual games, but overall, is be flexible with your team. Understand that goals might need to be changed. Try and be, you're not omnipotent. Sorry, not omnipotent, but you're not clairvoyant. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, but being aware that you need to pivot sometimes quite a lot. Do reviews of your team a lot as well. Make sure that everyone on your team is reviewed and happy, and shares their ideas and is aware of what's going on. Just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. It just becomes way more important when you're on large projects. And then progression, making sure your team is progressing, your game's progressing, because as your team progress through their career, if you want to keep them on your games, you need to make sure that they're going to stay with you. Because if you've launched a successful game already, you want to make sure those people stay with you for the next one and the next one and the next one. And that's only going to happen by being aware of who you are working with, and what they want to do in their careers. What do they want to do with the game they're working on as well. You're not just progressing your team, you are progressing those games as well, and you're progressing yourself in that moment as well. When you are progressing a team, you learn a lot from them, and you should take that on board and use that to move your company forward and plan ahead. 5 things you can take over from hyper casual game: fail fast. At the ideation stage, and all the way up to the prototype stage, make sure it's you're working probably smaller teams that can make their own decisions as well. And might be based off a single mechanic and things like that. Fail fast at that early stage. Use those small teams to trust them, allow them to make their own decisions. See the scope that they think that they might be able to get done. And test those prototypes as quickly as you can. Especially in the early stages. Reuse a lot of the assets you might make are able to be used on the next projects and stuff like that. Someone I met in Nordic recently at the Games Conference there showed me a wonderful library of all the assets they've ever used in their games. And this was 10, 20,000 assets long. And they reuse these all the time. They might need some changes here and there, but they're really important, and it saves a lot of time too. In terms of creative, lots of casual games use hyper casual mechanics or gimmicks, if you will, to get more users on the latter end of their life. Like if you've had a game that's been going for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and your CPIs have started to rise and get a bit higher, look at refreshing those creators, and do that often as well. And think about what else is working in the industry, like what's hot at the moment in hyper casual, and how could you apply that to casual as well? Because in casual, you're going to have higher CPIs than you do in hyper casual, but you can use some of the stuff that get you those low CPIs in hyper casual to make better casual creatives as well. It's something I've seen. Game I worked on a year ago now, called Find the Key. We saw that mechanic used in 3 or 4 different casual games, and that's great to see because it's a great mechanic. And you can use that to kind of work on better creators that are going to get you those lower CPIs and get more players into. Build a catalog, just like I have catalog of insights and tests is going to do nothing but make the future easier. Make sure you keep all your tests, you keep all the results, you keep all your A/B tests you've done from any game in any genre, and you can use them to help plan out the future of your next game. Make sure that everything you have is kind of kept somewhere safe, and back it up too, because you don't want to lose it. And make sure you use those to influence your decisions moving forward. And innovation. Hyper casual breeds innovation. I've never seen a more innovative group of people than when I started working on hyper casual. Your team is where you're going to find the things that are going to make your casual games stick out, and that innovative hyper casual mindset is just wonderful. Take it with you when you move into casual games, if you move into casual games, and use it consistently, because good ideas can come from anywhere. And that's it. If there's any more questions and stuff like that, let me know. But if you have any questions you don't want to ask right now, feel free to get in touch with me or wherever you see me. I'll be at tons of conferences over the year, so feel free to just walk up to me and chat to me as well.
Thank you, Chris. Very inspiring speech. Thank you so much. We have several questions from viewers, so I believe we have enough time to answer them. The first one is: will hyper casual to casual lead to free to play? What's the performance on in-app purchases versus ads in hyper games?
Cool. So that's a good question. That's kind of multiple questions in the same question there, but I'll answer them. So will people move to casual games increase free to play? Yes. I mean, casual games and hyper casual games are technically free to play. You know, we don't pay anything to play those games. You know, you might watch ads and stuff like that, but I do think that, you know, we're going to see a rise in free to play, not just in the mobile industry, but in the PC console area of the world as well soon. And you know, in terms of IAPs and, you know, your ad revenue, you know, you play any of the top casual games, most of them don't have very many ads. They're more going to be reward videos rather than interstitials, and you're going to be looking a lot more to the 80% of IAPs funding your game, and that's why early conversions in casual games for paying users is really important. Like, they're the people you want to look after because they are going to fund your company, you know, and you're going to, it's very different. Like, whereas in hyper casual, you might see 5-10% of IAPs as revenue. It's the opposite end. You know, they are two ends of the same spectrum.
Thank you so much. Okay, the next one. How much does automation of processes in pipeline change from hyper casual to casual?
So like optimization pipelines and stuff like that, they change quite a lot, and you know, you're going to need to be constantly optimizing.
Automation. I'm sorry.
Automation. Sorry. Depends what you mean about automation there, really. I mean, if you're talking about automating like the creation of games and ideas, you know, some people do work and automate ideas through like little generators they've built and stuff like that. If you're talking about like automating like bidding and stuff like that in terms of UA, I wouldn't be the right person to answer that, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure what they want from that question, to be honest.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Feel free to reach out to me after this, and I'll answer your question a lot better.
Okay. Probably the last one. Is it possible to use the same CPI measurements processes in casual from hyper casual? We can understand the hybrid casual type a middle point between hyper and casual, right?
Yeah, so I think that's a fairly good question. So obviously, casual games are going to have higher CPIs than hyper casual games, and there is this hybrid casual genre that is growing. Hybrid casual is a lot closer to hyper casual than it is to casual. It's something that I think a lot of people aren't really aware of, that putting a meta game in a game doesn't make it casual. You know, you'll know by how you make your money in those games, like which side of the spectrum it is. Hybrid casual games, you know, they do rely a bit more on IAPs and a bit more on reward videos than hyper casual. And you know, you will get probably a closer split, probably 70-30 ads to IAPs. But you know, you need to be aware that those CPIs that you get in casual games are not going to be anywhere near like CPIs you're looking for in a hyper casual. You know, you might not see your ROAS in casual games for, you know, 60, 100, 300 days. I know successful casual games that don't make the money back for their CPI until day 360. So be aware of that when you're doing casual games. You need to be able to predict that stuff, and it becomes very important to understand how to predict that stuff as well.
Great. Thank you so much. I believe this is it. I really appreciate your appearance, and if you have time, please join the general chat. I believe there might be more questions to you, and maybe private requests for review or a meeting. So please stay online.
Sure, yeah, I'll jump in the general chat. If anyone has any questions, let me know. And if you don't hear back from me, drop me an email, chris.pett@quine.com, or message me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat, always happy to spread knowledge in the industry. And if you want to tell something to me and you've got some thoughts, let me know. I would love to listen to you as well.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Have a great time, and thank you for joining us.
Nice. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.